Hi everybody, Merry Christmas. We're almost a week away and we are getting down to the final whiskeys on our list here. We only have a few bourbons left and today we're gonna have one of them. It is 1792 small batch. (1792) is made by Barton 1792. That's the name of the distillery, the company that produces this whiskey. They're owned by Sazerac, the same company that owns Buffalo Trace and makes like the Sazerac Rye that we just had recently. This really is a different type of whiskey with completely different notes than Buffalo Trace. Like, I don't think they taste really similar at all. Maybe some people disagree, but I don't think so. I think that's the general consensus, and they operate pretty differently too. So this is a different whiskey, just happens to be owned by the same umbrella company that owns Buffalo Trace as well. It is a small batch, like we talked about before. That doesn't really mean anything. It means whatever they want it to mean. This is 1792's entry-level whiskey, but a lot of folks consider this to be one of, if not the best value in bourbon. You can get it around 20, as low as I think $28, or you could usually find it around 30 at a lot of grocery stores. It's pretty good stuff. Let's give it a try. So for whatever reason, Barton 1792, I've noticed recently at least, they source a lot of their product, meaning that they will sell a lot of their whiskey to other bottling companies that don't distill their own spirit, and then those companies will blend different whiskeys, either of Barton 1792 and other distilleries, or of just different Barton 1792 spirits or aged whiskey already, and sell it as their own product. They'll bottle it, they'll blend it, sometimes they'll age it on their own as well. But the 1792 line, I believe, is the only branded whiskey that Barton 1792 makes from their own stuff. So there's a few of them. We'll go through some of them when we get done tasting this one. But again, this is their entry level. It's a really weird ABV and proof. It's 46.85% ABV, which puts it at 93.7 proof. So comes in a little higher than the Buffalo Traces we've had so far, lower than bottled and bond stuff, but still a pretty easy sipper. So let's give it a nose, give it a taste, see what we got. So it's definitely very forward with the corn, the sweetness from the corn. And you know, I said I didn't think this compares or is really comparable to Buffalo Trace products. I do get a little bit of, I don't think it leans as heavy toward grape, maybe a little bit more cherry with this on the nose. That's kind of what that sweetness turns into for me. And then just a lot of rye spice. What is it? It's leaning more toward that piney sort of rye spice than it is like a baking spice like clove or cinnamon or anything like that for me right now. And usually with 1792 products, that is kind of what I pick up. There's a little bit toward like prickly mint in how the rye spice presents than anything else. Let's get a taste. I think it tastes pretty similar to how it smells. They kind of match the palate and the nose on this one. The rye spice is a little bit more forward. It kind of hits you. Yeah, that cherry's there, but not as much. It's like maybe initially faintly for just like a second, and then that rye spice really does take over as it gets more toward the back palate. But I also find a little bit, I think this will be true, excuse me, if this opens up a little bit more, almost like a banana-y or like a bubblegummy sort of, or just a hint of it before the rye spice kicks in. And I've been told that the bubblegum flavor that you get in like bubblegum is actually just a weird combination of artificial, artificial like citrus and artificial banana. And it combines to make the bubblegum flavor that we all know. And with rye, whether it's a rye whiskey or rye in a bourbon, sometimes that presents in sort of like a citrusy way. And I know there are some bourbons, and I'm not sure exactly why it is, maybe a combination of the rye and the yeast or something like that, can produce this sort of tropical banana-y note. And so I kind of wonder if, you know, bourbons like this, maybe not this one in particular, but can sometimes present in both of those ways where you almost get like a hint of that bubblegum at one point. But that bubblegum note is coming through more, a little bit more on the nose. That cherry is kind of morphing into more of that bubblegum. I think as more air gets to this. I think this is really good, easy to drink. There's a lot to it, and that rye spice, that kick, it's really nice. I like it. So if you like it, you're in luck, because you've got a whole heck of a lot of options for where to go with 1792. Like the small batch, there's a single barrel in the line. I don't know what the proof is on that, but it's just bottled from one barrel. And what's been really popular in recent years is 1792 bottled in bond. So just like the old Grandad bottled in bond, this meets those same legal requirements. It's obviously it's from Barton 1792. It's a 50% ABV, 100 proof, has to be. I really like this one. It's really good, a little proofier. I think the mint, it's a little bit more mint forward, but there's also that really strong bubblegummy presence as well. I would say the bottled in bond probably is just a step up from the small batch. You should be able to find this. I know at some stores you can find the bottled in bond for like 35, 36 bucks before tax. So, you know, it's a few bucks more than the small batch. I think it's worth it if you find it, but it is harder to find. You can also go to some of the brands that Barton 1792 sources to, the bottlers that they sell their spirit to. And one of those, a really popular one, is Calumet, I think it's how it's pronounced. Calumet, I'm not really sure. They have a few bottles that come in this really weird, almost like a heart-shaped bottle, like this one. This is the only Calumet product I've had before. This is their small batch, but they specify, which is kind of cool, that it says, okay, they've got 14-year-old whiskey and 8-year-old whiskey, Kentucky bourbon, 25 barrels of each. So the small batch is only 50 barrels. But where do they specify? Oh, they give you the mash bill on this label right here. 74% corn, 18% rye, 8% malted barley. And you could Google this, it's pretty simple. They can't say, for whatever reason, probably because of whatever contract they reached with Barton 1792, that this is their liquid, but they can tell you the mash bill. And all it takes is a quick Google search to say, oh yeah, that's Barton 1792. Similarly, if you want to go up a little bit in value and maybe prestige, there's this whiskey, Sam Houston. This is the 15-year that was released this year, in the early part of this year. I think they had more batches recently come out as well. This is all Barton product as well. Again, they don't say it's from Barton, but they give you the exact mash bill, and it's exactly the same. 74 corn, 18 rye, 8 malted barley. This is kind of a cool bottler because they release really, really small batches, but they don't do it nationwide. They don't distribute to every state, but they distribute to, I think, most of them at this point. And every state gets its own batch. So the Washington bottles are not going to taste like the Oregon bottles, if Oregon even got them, I'm not sure. And you can tell exactly what batch you're getting just by looking on the back label right here. So this is the 5th bottle of 516 bottles from Washington Batch 1 from this year. It's pretty cool. And it was bottled at exactly 15 years of aging. So if you want to taste what an aged Barton product looks like, you can go with Sam Houston. There are also at some of the big liquor stores, I think even Costco, a bottle of Calumet that looks a lot more like this. It's shaped like this, and there's a 14 and a 15-year-old. I haven't tried. I want to. They're supposed to be really cherry forward, pretty delicious, and the only reason I haven't tried it is just because it's kind of expensive. Those bottles, the 14 and 15-year-old Calumets and the Sam Houston 15, they're each around like 100 to 115 bucks depending on where you find them. So it's kind of hard to pull the trigger on those sometimes. But If you want to go in a completely different direction and save yourself some money, but get something a little bit different, get a source product from Barton 1792, you know, maybe something higher proof, because I think the highest proof we've talked about so far is this guy right here, but it's only 103, you know, nothing too crazy. You could go to Costco. They recently started selling Barton products under their Kirkland brand, and this is a pretty new line. Earlier this year, I think in early summer, they had the small batch, which was this exact same bottle, but a white label with a different picture here. And it was really, I think, a similar proof to the 1792 small batch, but they tell you right up front, this is from Barton 1792. So it's the same stuff, well, not the same stuff in this bottles, but same stuff from Barton 1792. And they've got that small batch, which is supposed to be okay. They've got a bottle and bond version, which is a green label, which is supposed to be pretty good, a step up from the small batch. And then they've got this, which is the single barrel. I don't think it's at barrel proof, but it's at close to it. It's at exactly 120 proof, so 60%, which means they probably cut it down to meet that exact specific proof number, but I mean, it's close enough to being barrel proof that I don't mind calling it that. This is pretty good. I like it. It was only like 30 something bucks before tax, and this is a liter. This isn't even a 750 milliliter, so this is a pretty good value. I definitely think if you like the 1792 small batch and you have a Costco membership, go there, get one of these. It's worth it. Like, if nothing else, you can mix a little bit of this in your old fashions or whatever for a long time to come, since you're getting a liter of the stuff and since it's such a high proof. So that was a lot, but that's Barton 1792. I really like it. I hope you do. And we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.